It was just another overnight shift at the grocery store, quiet, routine, uneventful. No deliveries were expected, so my team and I were simply restocking shelves. Occasionally, someone from the meat department would stay behind to deep clean their station. That night, it was Mary. Just after midnight, Mary approached me, visibly shaken, her face pale, eyes wide, and her breath short. "There's a man in the meat department," she stammered. "He's dressed in black, and he's motioning for me to come to him." I immediately grabbed another employee, and we searched the entire store, every aisle, the back rooms, the meat department itself, but there was no sign of anyone. Trying to reassure Mary, I told her she was safe. Maybe she was just exhausted? Yet, deep down, I couldn't shake a lingering sense of unease. Minutes later, Mary returned, her fear now full-blown panic. "He's back!" He's standing there again, calling me over. Again, we searched. Again, we found nothing. At that point, I told Mary she could go home for the night. There was no need for her to keep working if she was this disturbed. She looked relieved and left. The next morning, I informed the store manager about the strange event. She pulled up the security footage, but there was nothing. No mysterious man. No one lurking in the meat department. Then the manager mentioned something odd. Just a few nights earlier, Mary had reported seeing a customer in the store carrying a knife. She had been visibly unsettled then too, but no one had taken it seriously. The manager assumed stress was getting to her. That night, I returned to work as usual, only to be met with shocking news. Mary had passed away in her sleep. She had gone home after I sent her off and never woke up. No cause of death was ever determined. That night still haunts me. It was a normal grocery run. Just me, my 2 teenagers, and one of their friends. We went in, shopped as usual, and started making our way through the aisles. That's when I noticed him. He was well-dressed, maybe in his late 20s, wearing a designer coat and polished boots, far too put together for a simple grocery run. He had no cart, no basket, just a phone in his hand, pretending to examine random items. At first, I brushed it off, but then he kept showing up in every aisle we entered. Every time we moved, so did he. As we finished shopping and headed to the checkout, I gave the store one last glance. He was still there, out in the parking lot. As I loaded the groceries into the car, I saw him again. This time, he was parked right in front of me, watching. I told my kids to get in the car, lock the doors, and keep my purse safe. As I stepped away to return the cart, he moved toward me. I turned, making direct eye contact, and stood my ground. I wanted him to know that I saw him, that I wasn't afraid. That's when he stopped, hesitated, and suddenly bolted. Before I could react, a black SUV with tinted windows screeched into the parking lot. He jumped in, and they sped away. I contacted the police immediately, and to my horror, I wasn't the first person to report a similar encounter in that area. To this day, I don't know what their plan was, but I do know one thing. I was their target. It was nearly 1 a.m. when I decided to stop by the grocery store after my late shift. The place was mostly empty, just a few employees and scattered customers. I went about my shopping, but something felt off, a lingering sensation that I was being watched. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid, but then I noticed him, a man who kept appearing in the same aisles as me. No cart, no groceries, just lingering. Trying to ignore it, I finished shopping and headed to the checkout, only to realize I had left my wallet in the car. Frustrated, I left my basket at the register and stepped outside. And there he was, standing right next to my car, pretending to look at the ground, searching for something. Every hair on my body stood on end. I called my cousin as I walked toward my car, just for some sense of security. As I approached, the man turned to me. "Need help with something?" he asked. I shook my head, forcing out a no. Then, another man emerged from the shadows. "Are you sure?" he asked, grinning. Something inside me snapped. Without thinking, I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Get away from me!" The men froze, startled. Then they bolted. A security guard, alerted by my screams, came running. He chased them, but they got away, dropping a small bag in their escape. Inside, knives, rope, tape. I don't know what their plan was, but I know I was meant to be part of it. I was used to early morning shifts at the grocery store, 4:30 a.m., just me and the silence. But that morning, something was wrong. As I unlocked the store, I noticed the office door was open. It was always locked at night. Cautiously, I stepped inside, and there he was, a man dressed in a hoodie, rummaging through the office drawers. He turned, eyes wild with surprise. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaky. He didn't answer. Instead, he took a slow step forward, revealing something in his hand. A knife. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. "And neither are you." I ran. Heart pounding, I sprinted through the aisles, dialing 911 as I went. He chased me. I could hear his breath, his footsteps growing closer. I ducked into storage, pressing myself against the metal shelves, barely breathing. And then he started calling for me. Come out, come out." Wherever you are, the sirens outside didn't seem to scare him. But when the police burst through the doors, his demeanor changed. He raised the knife. The officers tackled him, disarming him in seconds. Later, I learned he was a former employee who had been released from a psychiatric ward. He had hidden in the store overnight, waiting for someone to open the doors.